At a family dinner, Mom smiled, Dad joked, and my sister called me the best sister. I laughed and said I'm done with all of them. They shouted, "For what?" I replied, "I know what you're plotting against me." They turned pale. My name is Nancy and I'm 33 years old. I work in accounting at a mid-sized company downtown and I make decent money. Not rich person money, but enough to have my own one-bedroom apartment in a nice part of town and a healthy savings account that I actually use for saving, not spending on random stuff. I like my life organized. I pay my bills on time. I meal prep on Sundays and I have a budget spreadsheet that I update every week. My friends think I'm boring, but whatever. At least I'm not stressed about money all the time like most people my age. My family is the complete opposite of me. My parents, Lindy and Joe, are both in their late 50s, and they've never met a plan they couldn't ignore. Mom worked part-time at a department store until last year when she decided she was too tired to keep working. Dad does construction work when he feels like it, which isn't very often these days. They live paycheck to paycheck when they actually have paychecks. Then there's my younger sister Emma. She's 28 and works at a coffee shop, but only when she's not pursuing her art. She paints these abstract things that look like a kindergartner's finger painting project, but she calls herself an artist. She's been living in the same studio apartment for over a year now. And guess who's been paying her rent? Yep, me. It started small. 3 years ago, my parents called me crying because they couldn't make their mortgage payment. Just this once, they said, emergency situation. So, I sent them $1,000. Then, it happened again the next month and the month after that. Now, I just automatically send them money every month because it's easier than dealing with the drama. Same thing with Emma. Last year, she called me sobbing because she was going to get evicted. Could I just help her out this one time? Her rent is $1,200 a month, which is more than she makes at the coffee shop most months, but I figured if I paid it at least she'd have a stable place to live, and maybe she'd get her act together. I don't really mind helping them out. So, when Mom called me last Tuesday and asked if I wanted to come over for dinner on Friday, I said, sure. We try to do family dinners at least once a month, even though they usually end up being me listening to everyone complain about their problems while I eat Mom's overcooked pot roast. Friday rolled around and I showed up at my parents' house right at 6 like always. It's this little ranch house in an older neighborhood that they've been slowly letting fall apart because repairs are expensive. The front porch has been sagging for 2 years now. I walked in and saw Emma sitting on the couch next to some guy I'd never seen before. He was tall and skinny with a beard that looked like he'd been growing it for about 5 minutes. Emma was practically glued to his side, giggling at something he'd whispered in her ear. Nancy. Emma jumped up and ran over to hug me. I want you to meet someone very special. This is Marcus, my fiancé. I blinked. You're what now? We're engaged. Emma held up her left hand, showing off a tiny diamond ring that probably came from one of those rent-to-own jewelry places. When did this happen? I asked, trying to hide my shock. Last time we talked, Emma was complaining about being single. 2 weeks ago, Marcus said, standing up to shake my hand. Emma talks about you all the time. You're the successful sister, right? There was something about the way he said successful that rubbed me the wrong way, but I just smiled and said, congratulations. We sat down for dinner and Mom brought out her usual spread: dried chicken, instant mashed potatoes, and green beans from a can. Dad asked Marcus what he did for work, and Marcus said he was between opportunities, but had some big things in the works. Emma kept staring at him like he'd just invented electricity. We were halfway through dinner when Emma suddenly put down her fork and got a serious look on her face. Actually, I have something important to ask everyone. Here we go, I thought. Another crisis, another request for money. Marcus' parents invited us to go to Hawaii with them for a week, Emma said, her eyes getting bright. They want to get to know me better, and they said it would be a great bonding experience before the wedding. That sounds nice, I said carefully. The thing is, Emma continued, it's going to cost about $12,000 for all 4 of us, me, Marcus, and his parents. She looked right at me when she said it. So did my parents. So did Marcus. I set down my fork and looked at Emma calmly. I'm not going to spend money on this trip, I said. You can establish a relationship with your future in-laws for free. Plan some kind of event together. Take a walk in the park. Have them over for dinner. There are plenty of ways to bond that don't cost $12,000. Emma's face immediately turned sour. Nancy, this is important to me. Marcus leaned forward and looked at me with an annoyed expression. That sounds pretty rude, honestly. Emma and your parents told me you always help them out financially. This is a big deal for our relationship. My parents both nodded in agreement, and I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. They'd been talking about me to this stranger, telling him how I always gave them money, like I was some kind of ATM they could count on. I stared at Marcus for a long moment, realizing he was just like the rest of them. Another person who thought I owed them something just because I had my life together. I'm not going to waste money on some vacation, I said, keeping my voice level. But I'll be happy to give you money when you're actually getting ready for the wedding. You know, for something that matters. This conversation is over. The rest of dinner was tense. Emma kept shooting me dirty looks. Marcus wouldn't even look at me. Mom and Dad exchanged glances like they were having some kind of silent conversation about how disappointing I was. But I didn't care. I finished my dinner, helped clear the table like always, and went home. Several weeks passed after that dinner. My phone stayed quiet. No calls from Mom asking how I was doing. No text from Emma sharing some stupid meme she found online. Nothing from Dad asking if I could swing by and help him with some project around the house. I'm used to my family being dramatic and needy, but I'm not used to them completely ignoring me. Even when we fight, someone usually calls within a few days to smooth things over. This felt different. So, on a Thursday afternoon, I decided to do something I never do, show up unannounced with a peace offering. There's this fancy bakery called Sweet Dreams right next to my office building. They make these amazing fruit pies that cost like $40 each, but they're the kind of thing that makes people forget they're mad at you. I bought Mom's favorite apple cinnamon with some kind of special glaze on top. I told my boss I had a family emergency and needed to leave early. It wasn't exactly a lie. Then I drove over to my parents' house, high box in hand, ready to apologize for being such a hard ass about the whole Hawaii situation. I still had my key from when I lived there during college. So, I let myself in like I always did. That's when I heard voices coming from the kitchen, loud voices. They were having some kind of intense conversation, and they obviously hadn't heard me come in. I was about to call out when I heard Emma's voice, clear as day.